Cats, cops, and C4. All right, so was my guess right? Cenk asks as he arrives at the lab. He had given them a few hours to work through things before asking questions. Need to know at first, is his answer. Not that he's surprised. The woman he's speaking to is one he's not on the best terms with, but she's professional and dials it back to the occasional bit of mockery. Something he's more than happy to volley back with. I didn't want to taint opinions, but when I was at the scene, it looked to me like our victim was attacked with a weapon that cut them in half, and then their lower body reduced to a smear with plasma fire. That adds up. Our victim was cut in half by a molecular blade just under the stomach and their entire lower body vaporized. Miss Alrian, our victim, is a data clerk for a local insurance corporation, Solid Security Incorporated. Really? Chunk asks as his mind starts turning. Has she been forced to deny any claims or... She's a data clerk, not an insurance agent, adjuster, regulator, underwriter, or representative of any kind. She sorted files on a massive scale and ensured things were backed up and in their proper places. The lab woman states in a condescending tone. The Fossa woman has some strange style where she had her ears pierced and weighed down for some reason. It doesn't seem to hinder her sense of hearing though, so it's really not his business. Even if it's really, really weird. I see. I'm going to have to look into things a bit more. Is there anything else? Not much. It was her day off and she was slowly picking at a bowl of fruits and cured meats throughout the day. And from what we found in her stomach, there was nothing else. Her blood also came up fairly normal, and there was minimal, if any, damage to her townhouse beyond the plasma burst and the mess. What about the cleaning drone? Anything beyond basic house dirt and whatever it cleaned up from her? No. All right. I'm going to see about getting video records in the area. Is there anything you find odd? Not beyond the oddity of someone burning away the lower body after killing someone. Maybe it's to cover up a theft? Maybe. Wait, was Miss Alrian pregnant? No. Oh, well, there goes that angle of potentially insane jealousy. All right, human, you do know that you and your kind have mostly run into just the crazies that will do all sorts of stupid things without thinking, right? Logically, yes, but first impressions are very hard to shake, Cenk replies. So long as you're aware, we still have a lot of tests to run here, so there's no point waiting for US to look for video evidence. She hints at him unsubtle, and he gives her a salute in response, and she scoffs. Military people? Civilians, Cenk moans in response. Civilian nothing. I'm both an officer of the law empowered to make arrests and a forensic scientist. My apologies, non-combatant. I can shoot you. You can shoot a weapon at me, but me? I doubt that. He mocks her and she glares at him. I could scream you to pieces. And I'm going to be the mature adult and not make the obvious joke on that one. See you later, Miss Scientist, he says and slips away and out of the lab. He heads through the station while thinking deeply on the situation. Solid Security Incorporated. If it's anything like it is on Earth, then there's likely to be a laundry list of people furious at the company. But furious enough to kill an employee? And why is the lower body torched? A theft? It seems like a very petty thing to do. Few people carry two weapons at once outside of officers, mercenaries, soldiers, and the like. Not to mention a molecular blade is an interesting weapon to use. Very, very sharp. Technically capable of getting even true hypercrete, but if used carelessly, they can shatter. You need to be stable and steady with each and every attack. Also, if what it's going through is too thick, then literally anything can stop a molecular blade. They're normally small things used for extremely precise cutting. Finding one longer than a few inches is far from normal. And to make a clean cut through a torso, it would need to be about a foot in length and likely much longer. At least 2 feet, to be honest. People usually don't stand still as someone tries to slice them in half. Which just leads to further questions. He notes to himself as he walks through. Hey, Linda, He's cut off even as he arrives at the office with Linda already leaving and grabbing him by the shirt. Another murder with a similar MO. We're going to take a look and guard as before. On it, Oz, he says, keeping pace. I was just in the lab and they confirmed the first body. Miss Alrian was first cut in half, a molecular blade from what they can tell. I can tell you from combat experience that you need at least a foot-long blade to carve someone in half, and it was likely twice that, as people don't tend to stand still for a bisecting. Foot long? Sorry, 30 centimeters, and then 60. The sheer amount of muscle, not to mention the spine and organs, requires a fairly substantial blade, and the longer the blade is, the easier it cuts something, especially with a resisting target. People try to dodge, even if they functionally can't. That's what a flinch is, a reflexive dodge. So you'd prefer a 60-centimeter blade for slicing someone in half? At least longer if I can get it. I'd put 60 around a practical minimum for doing it in one cut. 90 at its most practical, much longer than that, and there would have likely been environmental damage. Cenk explains and she nods. It's good to have a soldier explain these things. We're leaving Vera and Malin behind for this one. They've started sparring while you went to the lab. Right, I'll send them a text while we're underway. Don't want them to start looking. Cenk agrees as he follows her to her car and gets into the passenger seat. I wasn't able to spot anyone suspicious entering her house in the last day or so. So the camera is coming up a bust, Linda tells him as they take off. She turns on the sirens and he's texting Malin and Vera. Right, well, I was able to confirm our victim worked at a Solid Security Incorporated and was about to do some research on them when this next kill came up. There are at least 6 companies I've heard of with that name in passing. Is it the construction firm, the mercenary outfit, the armor manufacturer, or the insurance company? Cenk says before pausing. Okay, I know Big Galaxy and all that, but they're all in different languages and get translated into galactic trade. I think the insurance company is just straight up in trade thought. It started as a multi-species conglomeration. Linda tells him, and he nods as he thinks. Right, this, Chunk says as he thinks. If a pattern is starting, then we need to find the commonality beyond method of murder. The scientist in forensics floated the idea that it may be to cover up a theft. Murder to cover up a theft? That's going much too far. Also, her name is Alari, and I'll make sure to forget it as she keeps forgetting my name. What is your gripe with her? I don't know. I was getting to know her and must have inadvertently insulted her somehow. She's made a point of mangling my name ever since, and that's if she uses it at all. I suppose I should be thankful that neither of you are petty enough to sabotage things for each other. Of course, I have standards and so does she. It's something we can actually respect about each other. Her ear piercings still bother you? Yes they do. He answers and she chuckles a bit at that. The next victim is in an alleyway, several blocks away from the previous murder. They descend and the scene is much more gruesome. A torso with legs reduced to a char, a lot of blood and small scavenging animals that manage to adapt to and live among the spires were already making a go at the crime scene. Do we have any ID? Linda asks the first officer on the scene, who shakes her head. No, her personal effects must have been destroyed in this plasma burst. I've taken some pictures and am waiting for a response of facial identification. It's just that with the sheer population that... The officer begins before she receives a notice on her communicator. Perfect timing. This is Gina Hallis, an investor here on vacation. So was it a simple mugging gone really twisted? Chunk asks himself as he looks over the grisly mess. Without the cleaning drone, the mess was substantial and disgusting. You knew a situation was screwed up when you could see someone's marrow. Maybe, Linda says as she brings up her own communicator while Cenk starts examining the walls. He grins as he finds a small and fresh-looking cut in the building. He nods and then smiles as he sees at the end a tiny triangular chunk is taken out. Nobody move, I've spotted something, he says as he puts on gloves and begins checking around everyone's feet for a piece of... Here we go. It's a small triangular chunk of concrete. What's that? Linda asks. A hint. Not a big one, but a decent one, he says as he walks back to the tiny bit of wall damage and easily slots in the missing piece. This piece of the wall and the angle of the cut tells me a few things. Such as? The officer asks. The first weapon was held on the right side by the perpetrator. The swing was wide and long. He says then steps out to be in line with the victim. Now, I am taller and have longer limbs than the galactic standard, but look the distance between myself and the wall when I hold out my arm. A little over 35 centimeters, which means in the angle of the cut on the victim, in the wall, and the proportions. The first weapon is likely a monomolecular blade 60 centimeters long. That's what bisected our victim. Then what? They had a plasma pistol in the other hand they just burnt the legs to its ash with? The officer asks. It seems pretty sadistic to deal a lethal blow, prevent them from getting any hope of recovery and leaving them to bleed out. It would be if bleeding out with a wound this big wasn't a matter of seconds at most. She lost consciousness maybe 30 seconds in and was completely gone in a few minutes at most. But the question is, what is missing? Cenk asks. What do you mean? Linda prods him. We're either seeing a serial killer start a very odd signature or a series of robberies and muggings being dressed up by murder. Well, both victims are upper middle class to upper class. So wealth might be a concern, but the first was in her home, which wasn't burgled. Meaning that if something was stolen, it's something small and easily carried off. Carried off by someone with stealth capacity, as I noticed nothing on the camera. But that's easily dealt with by a small amount of hacking or coming in the fucking drone. Cenk trails off. It must have moved the body more than we thought, Linda says as she picks up his train of thought. Unless we know the original orientation of Miss Alrian's torso, it's going to be a hell of a time figuring out if she was killed after opening the door or after finding someone in her house. It shouldn't be too hard to figure it out. Trust Ilaria and her team. They're good at what they do. Fair enough. Still, we have a general profile for the killer. The angle of the attack allows us to rule out the larger races, unless we find evidence of someone attacking while crawling on their stomach for some reason, or unless someone's using shrinking technology to hide it. The officer states, and Cenk breathes out a huff and looks heavenwards at the next level up, as if some form of patience or insight will suddenly drop from the underside of the next tier. Unfortunately true, Cenk concedes. He'd forgotten about shrinking technology and techniques. Damn, Axiom really did let you do anything, including smoke your own damn trail really, really thoroughly. There's no more time for conversation, though, as someone walks through the hollow accordion and tries to brush past Linda before Cenk gets in the way and braces himself. They walk clean into him and fall to the ground cursing.